Godzilla vs. Kong has a sequel coming up, and it's supposed to be filming in Australia later this year. Now, before you guys talk about how good this movie was, let me be the one to be the negative one and say I absolutely did not like this movie at all. As a huge fan of the MonsterVerse, and from the first movie, I just loved every single one and watched all of them in the theater. I loved the mythology they were setting up, and I loved how different the tones were for the movies, and I also loved how they were setting up this mythology behind these titans, and it went very far back and all that. And especially my favorite one is definitely King of the Monsters. I know a lot of people hate that movie, and they say that the human characters were not good enough and all that. I don't care about all that. For me, it's all about the monsters, and the mythology of the monsters were pretty much very well done, from what I saw, and the monarch stuff, and how all the titans were emerging from the earth, and how they fought, and the visuals, the symbolism, the mythology of it. So I just loved all of it, right? And then finally they announced Godzilla vs. Kong, and I was super hyped for it. The trailers were really good, and then I saw the movie. So when I saw the movie, I initially kind of liked the first half, what it was setting up, but the characters were really dull, and the story was just not navigating as, I don't know, it just didn't feel like it was a complete story at first. And I was like, okay, maybe they're just here for the spectacle, right? The action spectacle. All right, whatever. And then by halfway through the movie, random shit, random plot points are just coming in and going out. Like there's literally no logic involved anymore. And once I got to the halfway point, I was like, okay, I'm already checked out of this movie. It's just doing random shit. But then they went into the spoilers for those who have not seen the movie. Um, they went into the Hollow Earth, which I liked as a concept. Even they teased that in the previous movies, and I liked the concept of it. And I was looking forward to when that would be explored. And yes, it kind of was cool, the technology and how they went there, and the initial experience of going in there. That was cool, and I thought that would have been um, better if they explored it more or set up that stuff more. And then randomly you go to Godzilla, who's sitting, you know, Kong, who's sitting down there, and there's literally no setup to it. There's no point of what's going on down there. Randomly, people are dying, and then he creates a massive hole and jumps inside the hole and comes out on top of the earth at the same place, where Godzilla is in Hong Kong or whatever. So it was just weird shit like that that just took me off. And the fight between them was cool. A lot of neon stuff going on, which was weird, but still it at least looked cool. So people who went to see that movie just for their fight, I guess they enjoyed the movie. For me, it was more about how it kind of ruins everything that was set up in the previous movie and all the other movies, this whole universe basically. And the end of that fight was also absolutely terrible, I thought. He's just walking into the water. So I just didn't like the movie at all. Now, while watching the movie, I thought a lot of the plot points were cut off just to make it shorter, the Warner Brothers 2-hour mandate, whatever. And all that stuff was going through my mind, because there was literally characters that were saying stuff that wasn't introduced in the movie itself. So after the movie came out, obviously, we got to know that yes, a huge chunk of the movie was cut. There was a whole backstory to the main character, the main fucking character. The entire backstory of him was cut off, and he was supposed to be, losing his brother in the Hollow Earth at the beginning and all that stuff. So that was all cut out. The side characters, they had no story at all. They just killed off. No, nobody gave a fuck about them, and that movie just left a big distaste in my mouth for this entire universe, because that movie is successful, and because it was successful, they will try to replicate this into the sequel, and not Godzilla, King of the Monsters, which was more a mythological approach. So I'm not excited for this movie at all, and just to, just to say this, I had to give my backstory. So yeah, I'm not excited for this movie at all. I don't care about the sequel, especially because it's Godzilla vs Kong Part 2 apparently, which is basically like,
Yeah.
oh, we didn't do it, well the first time. Let's try it again, sort of thing. I don't know. It was so weird.
Yeah.
What are your
I, I
thoughts?
wouldn't be I wouldn't be surprised if they use kind of Godzilla for the marketing, but it's more of a con movie because remember we got those reports that they were doing like a baby con movie there a while ago, um, because like look, my favorite monster movie is Kong Skull
I
Island.
love that
I
movie.
think that movie is the right blend of comedy, of seriousness, of action, of monsters, and I think it does it well. Like, there's a lot of complaints about the human stories are terrible. I actually thought the human stories in Con Skull Island
Yeah.
were actually interesting and good. Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson was actually pretty good in it, and Samuel L. Jackson, John C. Riley it had a nice feel to it as well, and I really liked it. And Con Skull Island, for me, is just top tier, and the rest of the movies have not met it at all, even though King of the Monsters is probably the best well-made
Yeah.
movie. It had so much mythology and references and stuff like that, which was cool. And I was looking forward to Godzilla versus Kong because I wanted to see these big monsters just absolutely tear each other apart, and they did kind of for a while. But my kind of problem was they kind of made the characters like too animated in a way in terms of like it's like they were real people looking at each other, like giving each other nods and stuff like this. It just didn't feel like two monsters in a way. I think what they set up for King of the Monsters, they didn't pay it off in this one, in Godzilla versus
Mhm.
Kong. And the human stories were just non-existent and non-interesting and stuff like this, and they just were leading nowhere. And I didn't care for them whatsoever. It's not that I don't want human stories. I think you need to have your human stories because look at Transformers. It was just kind of. I think after a while it would be ridiculous just watching giant Transformers running around with no humans in a way. I want to see my Shia LaBeoufs or Mark Wahlbergs or Haley Steinfelds. I think you have to do that in the monster movies as well because you have to relate to certain characters. It's very hard to relate to a massive, you know,
You're telling me you
lizard
don't
or
relate to Kong?
a giant monkey. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the Transformers are relatable. I mean, Bumblebee's kind of like
Yeah.
Yeah, but like,
the Bumblebee's kind of like the teenager of the Autobots. You know what I mean? Like Optimus Prime's like the
okay.
dad of the Autobots.
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way: from a business point of view, it's very hard to
Yeah.
attract people just by CGI beings. If you have Mark Wahlberg there, or Shia LaBeouf, or these big actors, then it's maybe easier for people to show up in a way. But yeah, I don't relate to a 60'5" gorilla and stuff like that. I'm sorry. Uh,
You see, I do after
this is poor
after a
choice.
few shots of vodka. I do.
Yeah, yeah. You have Rokan climbing lampposts in the middle of the night outside of a bar. But uh, but no, look, I'll watch the movie, of course. Am I excited for like I was for Godzilla versus Kong? Not really. I don't know how you do a part two, considering the two of them became best bros at the end of the last movie. Fist bump, walking off, giving each other hugs. Mecha Godzilla was cool. But yeah, I want to see more of these monsters. I want to. They're monsters. I want to see them go at each other, just tear each other apart. And I want to see the world where very few humans exist, like in the apes movies, and it's just like the monsters rule the world, like what the end of King of the Monsters set up. And yeah, I also think Adam Wingard is it the director of
He
Godzilla
has to
vs
go.
Kong.
Yeah.
For me, he is probably a studio's dream because his movies are making money and he's probably a yes man for the studio as well in the way. He's not going to go against them in the press. He's not going to say, oh, well, we had this entire thing cut and I wanted to keep it. He's probably not going to do that whatsoever. He's making good money, and in return, he's getting a lot of projects. I think there's a few other projects he got as well.
And that's why he has to go.
Thundercats. I think he's doing that movie or something. He got one of those movies.
Face Off.
Yeah, Face Off. Yeah. So my dream for a new monster movie is to bring back the director from Kong Skull Island, Justin Vaught Roberts. He should be brought back. He's the one who should have got Godzilla versus Kong, in my opinion. And I want to see him. I'll get excited for a monster movie if he is brought back into the equation. But yeah, the new one, I think it's bringing a lot of jobs to Australia. I read that. So that's awesome for that economy and stuff like that, and it's shooting there. So I'll watch the movie, of course. But yeah, I'm not counting down the days.